Hi, my name is Tabby, and this is my daughter Reagan, and we marched last year in January. I felt that it was important to march to show my daughters, I have two daughters, that it's important to change the world for women to come together and support each other. And I felt that it was very important for my daughter Reagan because she is deaf, and I wanted her to be included in a larger movement for people with disabilities and women for equal rights. I went to Washington, D.C. with my mom and we marched, and I was so happy to see people together, coming together and supporting each other to make a difference. My favorite shero is my mom, because I feel like she's always supporting people, not just herself, but other people to improve their lives. I feel like this women's movement is different than past, because I feel like it started as a protest to the presidential election, and really it was started, throughout history we've had male presidents, but this time it was different. Like, women wanted to have their voice included, and we had to find a way to work together. I feel like this movement is different because women are including everyone. So it's not only white women, it's women of color, it's women of disabilities, it's white women, it's everyone is included. Hi, my name's Reagan, and I'm a high school student. I'm not really in a club in high school, but I feel like the movement itself has really impacted me and people my age, because it's showing us that people who struggle with oppression, they're not alone. We have a group of people to support them and help them and change the world. And why I went to the Women's March. I felt that it was really important, and I felt inspired by the group of people and the diversity of women that were there. It's important because I'm deaf to look forward to our future. And who do I look up to? My shero? Her name is Claudia Gordon. Who is she? Well, she's an attorney who's deaf herself, and she worked for President Obama in the White House, and she also helped there. I was really impressed by her because she's from Jamaica. She's from a poor family herself, and she's Black. I have traveled the world, and I see lots and lots of women and deaf children. They don't have things. They don't have access to an education. And research has found about 70 million children don't have access to deaf education. Children who learn sign language, it's less than 5% now. And that's just something related to disability specific that needs to improve. And all the women who came together, so many women supporting each other. The women's movement and myself involved the Deaf Civil Rights Movement in 1988 and Gallaudet University. That movement believed that the hearing president needed to be replaced with a deaf president, and that Gallaudet needed to be led by a deaf individual. And we marched for that. It was a positive influence on me. I wanted to continue with that. You know, this Women's March was judgment-free. Women's access, women can.
When I was on my way to Washington 1 year ago, and I felt angry. I felt a little hopeless. Mostly I felt devastated for what I thought would transpire in our country. But on my way back from Washington, I felt energized. And I felt extremely hopeful about what every single one of you in this room was going to do. And frankly, we don't want to sugarcoat things here. The fact is that some of the worst came to pass in 2017. You remember the comments, you know the policies, the terrible tax cut that looks out for the 1% and screws the rest of us. Frankly, I could go on about some of the terrible things that happened in 2017, but what also happened in 2017 is that we together proved what organizing looks like when women lead.
Heroes of the Civil Rights Movement, and Women's March has ignited millions of sheroes. But unlike before, they hear our voice. Elizabeth Margaret Chandler was born in 1807 in the state of Delaware. Growing up, she attended a Quaker school that practiced anti-slavery. Elizabeth had lost both parents at the early age of 9, and just a few years later, she began to write poetry and literature of compassion, and in later writings of anti-slavery. Elizabeth went on to co-found the first anti-slavery society. She led by telling her friends to join her through her readings and refrain from purchasing produce from Southern slave owners. She was a freedom fighter in her own right. And what I've come to understand
Women's March is to push women's rights to the forefront.
Change can come, and women are the change.
See everyone
come out like this is really inspiring.
Hundreds of men, women, and children crowded the sidewalks here in downtown Columbus for the annual Women's March. Last year began with a record number of women attending the Women's March. Then later in the year, the Me Too movement gained steam. Many women here say they want to carry that momentum into 2018.
We're not stopping.
When we asked people why it was so important for them to be here, their answer was,
because I'm a woman and women need to speak up. Women are important and they've been held down much too long. All women, all ages, everywhere.
Justice, fairness in our society.
So today, men and women across the nation and here in Central Ohio say they will no longer be silent.
I think all voices need to be heard. I think right now a lot of voices have been silenced. The voices of women, the voices of people of color, the voices of undocumented immigrants. And I think it's important for all of us to come out here and talk about what's important to us and the direction that we want the country to move in.
And organizers also say that they are starting to organize and get together some of those marginalized communities whose voices may not be heard for the November midterm elections. Local for you in Columbus, Sean Lanier, NBC4.
Sean, thank you. Across the country and the world today, there were more than 200 demonstrations planned. By mid-morning, protesters assembled at major landmarks in the cities of Atlanta, Chicago.
Sure that we're doing the right things for all of the people in this wonderful country we live in. But it's very difficult now when you have people who are only doing partisan politics, or you have people who know what's the right thing to do, but then they're influenced because a president bullies them or threatens them. It's not a good time, but we're not giving up. I'm still going to fight and be a voice for what's right.
But Senator Portman says there is more bipartisan agreement on issues like DACA and overall immigration.